So welcome back to the Happiness series, and today's 6 of part 4. And we're going to continue today looking at the different supports for equanimity. And the one I'd like to focus on today is one that's come up time and time again throughout the Headspace journey, and that's because it is so important in creating the conditions for a sense of contentment or happiness. And that's this idea of change, of noticing change, of realizing that everything and everyone is impermanent. Generally in life, we live with a sense that things are unchanging. There's a sense of permanence. The advantage of that, of course, short-term advantage, is that we feel less vulnerable. We have a sense of knowing where we are in relation to everyone and everything around us. But the disadvantage of that is that we perhaps start to get caught in habitual patterns of thought, of emotion, of speech, of behavior, thinking that that's the way we are. And because we've always been that way, that's the way we always have to be. So we lose the sense of freedom, that the potential for change exists. Likewise, in other people, we assume that's the way they are. We limit them, and therefore we don't really allow them the space, the freedom to change. And all of these things, over time, can create a mind which feels very sort of restricted in many ways. And it's also a mind which is very reactive. So when things change for the better, we tend to sort of really sort of disappear into that. We're not always conscious, no longer present of where we are. Likewise, when things change for the worse, because we have that idea that all things are permanent, it comes as a real shock, a real surprise. And again, we're thrown off balance. We lose that sense of equanimity. So that's the importance. If we can see in everyday life that everything, everyone is always changing, then it's far more likely that we'll have a sense of equanimity and of balance in our mind. And of course, one of the key ways of seeing that change is when we sit down and watch the mind, when we meditate each day. So, with that in mind, just taking a moment now to get comfortable. Feet on the floor, eyes open. And just beginning today's exercise with some nice big deep breaths. And with the next out breath, just gently closing the eyes. And just settling into the physical senses, becoming more familiar with your surroundings. And now just scanning down through the body as you become more familiar with the physical sensations and also the emotional quality of mind. Remember, before shifting the attention to the breath, just taking a moment to be clear about your motivation and the altruistic nature of that motivation. And now, as you begin to become more aware of the breath, feeling a breath in the body, just settling the mind on that movement and just staying with that for the next couple of minutes. And as you continue to follow the breath in that way, just beginning the visualization now in your own time. Remembering to watch that expansion, to follow that expansion as far as the mind can possibly imagine. That all-inclusive sense of non-discriminating acceptance going out in every single possible direction. And with the next out breath, letting go of the image, letting go of any focus, and just allowing the mind to have complete freedom just for the next half a minute or so. And just bringing the attention back to the body now. Back to the different senses. And in your own time, just opening the eyes again. Remember that seamless transition. Aware during the exercise, aware outside of the exercise. Equally aware of how beneficial it is to be present throughout the day, to have a sense of balance in the mind. So knowing that, putting in the intention to have that sense of balance, to maintain that throughout the day, you can just sit back in the chair. And regardless of whether it's during the exercise that you notice this constant coming and going, this sense of change, or whether it's in everyday life, one supports the other. When we see change within our own mind, then it reinforces the sense of change externally going on around us. Equally, when we see it going on around us, it reinforces a sense of change in our mind. Both are equally important, which is why as you go through your day, it is so important to just acknowledge, to note the way in which people and things are changing. As I say, the more you see it, the more freedom there is in the mind. The less limited the mind will be, the less constricted the mind will be, but also far less likely to get thrown off course. Again, if you think about equanimity in terms of walking along a tightrope, if we're convinced that things are always the same way, then when we see that they change, then we're going to get a big shock, and that's going to cause us to wobble, and there's a good chance we might fall off. But if we're used to seeing things kind of passing us by, good things happening, bad things happening, changing, no matter what, then we're going to be comfortable just continuing along our way, accepting those things as they happen. Remember, acceptance doesn't mean sitting back, passively allowing anything to happen. There are times when we can engage, but we'll always engage from a more skillful place when we have a sense of balance and calm in the mind. That's the importance, the advantage of noticing change.